Vocabulary is critical if you're going to master the Greek of the New Testament or the Hebrew of the Old Testament. You simply can't read without knowing your vocabulary. The goal of vocabulary review is to learn the meaning of the word so that when you see it in the text before you, in your Greek New Testament or in your Hebrew Old Testament, you can recall the word to mind. So vocabulary review is not really the right way to describe what we're trying to achieve when we go through and learn vocabulary. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what we do want to do to be able to learn vocabulary. And I'm going to give you an explanation of exactly what this looks like. Hi, I'm Daryl Burling from Biblical Mastery Academy, and I help people like you take small, consistent steps from knowing nothing about the New Testament or Old Testament for that matter to be able to read it in your devotional times with joy and with meaning and, really get the most out of your Bible reading time. So let's talk about what are we doing when we learn vocabulary. A mistake that a lot of people make when they come to vocabulary, for the first time is they look at the Greek word and then they turn it over and they look at the meaning of the word, the gloss for that word, and then they go on. And then next time they do it, they do the same thing and they repeat. And what they're doing is they're just reviewing those two things in connection with one another. And this is not the way to learn vocabulary. What this is doing is this is properly termed reviewing vocabulary, but this is not learning to recall vocabulary. And so it's not going to help you learn the vocabulary like recalling is going to do. And once you sort of figure out that actually the goal here is to recall the vocabulary, this changes the way you think about learning vocabulary. So here's the goal. The goal is to be able to recall the meaning of the word the first time you see it in Greek or Hebrew without even having to turn it over. That's your goal. Now, this then means that when you come to configure your vocabulary, you're going to want to have an app that actually thinks through these things. And a lot of flashcards apps that are out there are really good at this and they have some really good features. So I'm going to show you, just walk you through a regular flashcards app. I'm going to use the one that we've got for Biblical Mastery Academy called Greek Tutor. I'll show you how it works here, but it's pretty much the same in most other flashcards apps as well, with a few little tweaks and differences here and there. The first stage of learning vocabulary is the learn phase. And really what we're doing by learn is we are recalling the word from memory with a very short interval between, seeing the word. So what we do in Greek Tutor is we actually ask you to get the word correct 3 times in a row as you look at it. So you see it the first time and you won't know it. Of course, you've got no idea what this word is. It's the first time you've ever seen it. So tap on it, flip it over, and you'll see the meaning of the word. Go on to the next word. Normally going to be learning a few words at a time, maybe 10, a little bit more maybe, but for the most part, it's small chunks of words. So go through and do this for all of the words that are there for you to learn. Once you've done this, start that set again, and this time for each word, try to recall the meaning you saw the first time you looked at it. That's only going to be it takes you a few moments, maybe 30 to 60 seconds to go through 10 to 15 words in this kind of manner. So you're really only saying, okay, between when I first saw it and 30 to 60 seconds ago, and now can I recall it? And if the answer is yes, then look at the word. You should be able to recall it from memory. If you can, flip it over, make sure you're correct. If you got it correct, mark it correct, and then move on to the next word. And what we ask in Vocab Tutor, and other apps do the same, is that you get the word correct 3 times in a row. Now that means then that as you go through each set, and it takes you maybe 30 to 60 seconds to do each set of vocab, you're going to be recalling that word 3 times correctly over a 3 to 5 minute period kind of thing max. So you've got a pretty short window here, and your task is to retain that word in your short-term memory long enough to be able to recall it over that short period of time. So that's the learning phase of learning a word from a vocabulary perspective. So the next question then, stage 2, is to go on to recalling the word after a longer period of time. And here, the goal is to prompt you at an increasing interval of time to remember and to recall that word so that you're able to remember it for a longer period of time. And as you do this, that word goes from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. And again, the goal here is to recall the word, not just merely to look at the word and review it, so to speak. So what we do in Greek Tutor is when you learn the word for the first time, mark it correct 3 times in a row, we give it a 120-minute or 2-hour interval, and then we prompt you after that period to recall that word again. And if you can do that and you can mark it correct, then we will increase the interval again before you see it by a factor of 1.2, which means if it's 120 minutes, it will go to 140 minutes before you see it again the next time. And so as you do this, as you review these words, the interval gets larger and larger, and slowly as you recall these words over this period, these increasing increments, the knowledge of this word, your ability to recall this word goes from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. That means then that you're more likely to be able to recall the word when you see it in your Greek text, or any Greek text for that matter, than if you were just to sort of look at it once and then walk away from it again. Now, here's the thing. Since your goal is to recall the word, what you want to do at this review stage is to see the Greek word, the lexeme ideally, which is the lexical meaning of the word or the lexical form of the word. You want to see the lexeme, and then you want to be able to recall it from memory without looking at the gloss. And so what we've done in Greek Tutor is we've implemented 4-sided vocabulary, so to speak. So on side 1 is obviously the lexeme, and you can configure this to however you wish to do so. Side 2, you could configure, say, the image for this word. We have images built in, and so we don't have it on, well, you can have it on your lexeme as well, but you really want it so that first side you see the word, and then the next side you see an image that goes with it. And of course, you're going to hear the word pronounced the first time you see it if you've got auto play audio turned on. And if you don't, you can just hit the play button down the bottom. And the goal here is to be able to recall the meaning of the word from the hearing or from the seeing of this image, if not just from the seeing of the word itself. If the image is not enough, if the audio is not enough, then you need a little bit more help. And this is where we have that word in its context to help you to recall what that word means. And if you don't know Greek very well, if you're just starting out, we give you a Greek verse, but we put some English words into the slots where you don't know those forms or words or whatever it is at this stage. So that way you can look at that verse and you can see, you know, the heavens and Aegis are the Lord's, for instance. And you can see Aegis would be the land, and therefore that would be the meaning of the word if that's what you saw on side 1. And because you can now read this verse, because you kind of remember it, you can remember that Aegis is actually the word for land. And so then when you turn it over to see the gloss, you've already got the meaning because you've recalled it from the verse itself. And so what we're doing with this is we're pushing your recall from simply, if you don't remember it by just simply looking at the lexeme or hearing it or seeing it, you've got other resources that will give you a bit of a hint so that you can recall it. And again, as you get it correct, you can mark it correct, increase the interval, and look for it the next time. Now, another little thing on this is that it's very tempting to try to get every word in the gloss, but this is not the point of the recall here. The recall, the meaning, the idea of the recall is to recall to yourself what the word means. Now, that doesn't mean to say you're trying to memorize a gloss. You're trying to recall the meaning of the word. So if you get the word roughly correct, even if it doesn't exactly match the gloss, I would just mark it correct and move on. Of course, you can always improve that, make a note of it for yourself so that next time you see this word, you try to do a little bit better. But for the most part, if you're in the general ballpark of what the word means, then you should mark the word correct so that you can push yourself to learn it a little bit later on. So by increasing the interval between recalls, you're going to be increasing your ability to recognize that word next time you see it in your Greek New Testament or your exercises for your Greek course or whatever. But what about if you get the word wrong? If you get the word incorrect, then you want to shorten the interval between recalling the word so that you get a little bit more practice with it. And in Greek Tutor and in many other apps like Flashcards Deluxe and Anki and so on, if you mark the word incorrect, it should automatically reduce the interval between reviews so that you're able to recall it with a little bit of a less of an interval, so it prompts you a little bit more frequently. And of course, as you get it right again, it will start to increase that interval again until, again, it's a year or more out from your current time frame. And so if you get it wrong, you just want to mark it incorrect and reduce the interval before you're prompted to recall it again. And that will, again, just reinforce that recall capacity and then encourage you to continue to move forward with it. Now, there are a number of words that get very confusing. The other day I came across sagane and sagini, and these are two words that have quite different meanings. Sagini is a large net or a drag net. Sagane is a basket or a rope basket. And of course, your first time you see one, you get confused with the other one. And so what we do in Greek Tutor is we actually track the frequency that you get a word correct or incorrect. And if you get it incorrect, more than 15% of the time, so if your correct ratio is lower than 85%, then we'll actually flag that, and you can change the setting, of course, but we'll flag that as a difficult word, and that means that you're able then to review that on a schedule that suits you. We also have a tool built in so that you can actually set this to reduce the interval when you review your difficult words, and I do this so that basically it resets the interval down to about 2 hours on those difficult words, so you're just reviewing them more often. And this way you're able to automatically identify those difficult words, those harder words to learn and to recall, and to put them together so that you're able to sort of really drill yourself on them. So the upshot of all of this is don't merely review vocabulary. You're not just there to walk through your review. You're there to prompt yourself to recall every word so that you can see it and recall it when you look at it in your Greek New Testament. If you're interested in the tools that we're running here, go to bma.to/Greek Tutor and you can jump in there and get started today. It's $15 a month and it's got all of these features built into it. Let us know in the comment section below how you do your vocabulary so that others can learn from the way you approach it. What do you do to improve your vocabulary? What tools and tips have you got? I'd love to hear from you there as well. So let us know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. We'll see you there.